Mr Brereton was speaking next to another federal government road project, the Mooney Mooney Bridge on the F3 freeway between Calgary and Somersby. That section of road, which will be opened by the Prime Minister in 2 weeks, will cut out the notorious Peak Ridge part of the highway. Now that's finished, Mr Brereton has another target in his sights for improvement, the Pacific Highway north of Newcastle. He says he wants the Pacific Highway to be reclassified as the National Highway, a call that Federal Transport Minister Peter Morris rejects. Mr Brereton says that if that can't be done, then the Commonwealth should extend the bicentennial road funding levy beyond 1988, even though the
New
Pacific
England
Highway
which
is
the
the
federal
state
government is funding under
government's
the National Highway
responsibility.
Program.
Do you think by doing this, the state government is shrugging its responsibility and handing it over to the feds?
Not for one moment. I'm indicating that we see that responsibility very clearly, and we're saying that the Pacific Highway should be the #1 priority for the future. What we're trying to do is to get the Commonwealth Government to continue the existing program after 1988. Don't cut out the 2-cent levy, continue it and allow the benefits that have been seen through the rest of the state to flow to those needy motorists and all the tourists who use that very busy route.
Mr Brereton says he has survey results to back up the continuation of the levy, but Peter Morris says that thought is nothing new. He says there are already 3 inquiries into the extension of that funding program underway.
Well, there's long-standing arrangements for who has responsibility for which roads, and everybody knows that this government, more than any other government in history in a comparable period, is improving our road system. We pay every cent of the cost of the National Highway, like the Sydney, the Mooney Creek, the highway through Newcastle, Tamworth, through to Brisbane, National Highway. We meet the full cost. Pacific Highway is a state road, state responsibility, we contribute to it, but it's a matter of priority for the state government.
Hello, I'm Helen Hughes. In tonight's news, I'll take you inside the Cessnock Corrective Centre for a look at the prison system and how this medium security jail operates.
Join Ray Deneen and Anna Manzoni for all the news tonight at 6.
Gosford City Council approved the project on the condition that some of the land be set aside for public use. So today, at an official function at the Gosford Aquatic Club, the Ramsey Group handed over an area known as Kappa's Gully to the council. This idyllic pocket of rainforest below the quarry is less than a kilometre from the centre of town and joins the Rumballara Reserve. The council has plans for a walking trail and information centre, and Kappa's Gully will eventually become part of a proposed Central Coast Bicentennial Park. The Paul Ramsey Group, meanwhile, has plans for an international standard hotel on the quarry site, as property development manager Jim Turner explained.
It's probably unique in most New South Wales cities and perhaps Australia-wide, where the heart of a beautiful city with views has been left for future developments. And we envisage that because of the beauty in the area, that it has potential in overseas markets, in such areas as international hotels, overseas.
The 5 intellectually handicapped athletes chosen to represent Australia were announced last night before the Hunter team, who have just arrived home from the inaugural National Games in Tasmania. Playing an important part in the New South Wales medal count, the team returned with 39 gold medals, 11 silver and 5 bronze. In the sports of swimming, athletics and soccer, Glenn Rose, Ruth Campbell, Neil Henderson, Mark Turnbull and Glenn Dowie will begin training for the International Games held next July in America. 2 coaches have also been chosen from the Hunter region. The team now has to finance a trip, and with a target of $21,000, fundraising will begin with a giant auction at the Cardiff Workers Club planned for Sunday week.
At 25 tonnes, this is the biggest diesel locomotive used in Australian mines. It operates underground and tows wagons, materials and personnel carriers to and from the coalface. Despite their pulling power, they're compact and technologically advanced. This one is the first off the assembly line of Hexham Engineering and is bound for Elcom's New Vale No. 1 mine. Another 5 are well advanced in production.
These diesel locomotives have really meant employment for 60 people at Hexham in this last 12 months. And this is the first of the 6 locomotives to be delivered, and it makes us feel very good that it's gone so well and has provided more employment at Newcastle.
The locos are powered by a 260 horsepower Caterpillar diesel which has been flame-proofed. The exhaust is water-cooled and specially treated so that it won't ignite. A feature of the Baldwin design is the dump braking system. If there's an engine failure, the loco drops down the braking skids, hitting the rails. The loco is lifted again by inflated airbags, which double as its suspension. Hexham Engineering entered the locomotive manufacture business when it bought the ailing Sydney firm Baldwin's. These first 6 locos represent an order worth $2.5 million.
It was a brave move to take over the Baldwin diesel locomotive factory when they were in trouble. Have you turned that situation around?
We think we have now. We guess another 6 months. We've got increased orders since we took them over, and within another 6 months, and we finished all the detailed drawings and specifications, we think we've turned it around, yes. Ongoing demand.
Revd Ted Knox' address at Fellowship House in Hamilton was a nostalgic occasion for those who remember him taking part in the launching of the Newcastle Youth Service in the same hall 21 years ago. Today, Reverend Knox is still one of the best known and most effective campaigners in the war against drugs. He founded one of Australia's most unconventional places of worship, the Wayside Chapel in the heart of King's Cross. The Reverend delivered a stark and grim message. The drug trade is now the largest industry in the world, he said, and is so powerfully organised that every young person is at risk. He said law enforcement is not enough and that we could lose the war against drugs unless we turn our efforts towards educating children about the dangers of drugs.
I think law enforcement is one way of fighting a drug war, that is to say, trying to reduce the supply of drugs to a community. But I think far more important is reducing the demand, that is education and prevention. And New South Wales and Newcastle, fortunately, has now a network of drug prevention programs with Life Education Centre, which I think in the long run are going to bite hard and going to produce a generation of children for whom it becomes unthinkable to take drugs. But in the meantime, we're going to lose a lot of young people.
The centenary open day at Stingleton Borehole Colliery featured one of the most realistic simulated mine disasters seen in the region. Colliery first aid teams showed how they would deal with a man trapped beneath an overturned coal skip, with miners suffering burns from an underground fire. The demonstration entertained a large crowd of miners' families and friends. Stingleton Borehole celebrates its 100th year after a checkered start late last century, which saw the mine plagued by flooding.
It was taken over by BHP in 1949 and now employs more than 400 people. Today, BHP Collieries head Bob Chenery presented washery employees with a 5-star award for safety. For one former employee, the open day was an even more memorable occasion. Wilf Dews, who was the gardener at the mine for 46 years, unveiled a plaque on a tree dedicated to his name.
Here is a group of people dedicated to the idea that age and disability should be no barrier to having fun. At the Toronto Workers Club today, members of the Strait Talk and Self-Help Club put on a Christmas variety show for residents of several local nursing homes. The organisation is dedicated to helping stroke victims rehabilitate. In what is believed to be a national first, 40 stroke patients took to the stage and sang, danced and joked their way into the hearts of the audience.
He put his finger in, tasted it, he said, "That's not holy water, that's whiskey." "Oh," says Paddy, "another miracle from Lourdes."
A group of much younger entertainers took to the limelight at Merewether High School today. These infant students from Merewether Public School were in final rehearsal for tomorrow night's opening of their Christmas show. Students up to Year 6 will take part, and the program includes verse speaking and a play devised by the students. But these little cherubs will undoubtedly be a highlight of the show, a reminder of what Christmas is all about.
Yesterday afternoon, the 5-year-old girl who'd arrived only this week from Dubbo waited outside her new school, Tighe Hill, for her mother to pick her up. School finished at 2:30 p.m. After experiencing car troubles, her mother arrived at 3:30 to find no sign of the daughter. She alerted police. Minutes earlier, a woman calling from Hudson Street, Hamilton, had reported to the police a suspicious incident between a young girl and an Asian man. That woman, Louise Thrift, was working in a nearby shop and had decided to investigate.
I went down and chased after him and asked the little girl if she knew the man, and she started to sob and she said no, and my husband reversed the car back to where we were, and I just took her into the office and the boss's secretary rang up the police.
Hamilton detectives are not sure yet as to what actually occurred. Questions to answer are how the young girl came to wander so far away from her Tighe Hill school, and if the Asian man was simply trying to assist her or in fact intended some harm. But the vigilance of Louise Thrift is something the 5-year-old's parents are now very grateful for.
They were really grateful, you know, they were here for about 15 minutes just saying thank you and, you know, telling me that she didn't know her way around, they'd only been here for a little while.
And would you recommend that others intervene if they should see something suspicious like that happening in the streets with children?
Well, I'd hope people would if it was my children. I mean, I wouldn't like anything to happen to kids if it can be helped.
This support was erected in Broadmeadow High School Hall, a beanie shell structure, in early September. At the same time, engineers examined the shell to compile a report on its safety. Broadmeadow P&C Association now want to know what the engineers found, and if they did find it was still a sound structure, why is the support not yet removed? Information that has been promised, but as yet not forthcoming.
What the parents are concerned about is the engineering report, which we haven't received, and to the short and the long-term purpose of the structure.
In the meantime, the association says the support is in itself a danger, nothing more than a crude band-aid.
Well, I think if people can see it from your report, with the wire and the boarding around the bottom, if it was used for PE and for the purpose that the halls were built, then children could be injured by coming into contact with it.
The Research Foundation will monitor the labour market of the Hunter region by recording the weekly number of employment advertisements in this area's newspapers. The index follows the ANZ Bank Employment Advertisement Series, which provides labour force information on a national level. The indicator will be appointed to how the labour force will grow in the 3 to 6 months following. It's part of the Research Foundation's aim of developing indicators of trends in the regional economy. And the Foundation's Director of Research, Dr. Wedge Paradise, says there are a number of uses for the resulting figures.
I guess two reasons. First is to try and provide the region, sponsors and also policymakers in the regions with an indicator of what will happen in the labour force over the next 6 to 12 months. And secondly, we'd like to compare trends in the Hunter region with those experienced throughout Australia and New South Wales.
Up until last year, the interest rate for overdue rate payers in Lake Macquarie City was 10%, well below the interest from financial institutions. This year, the council has decided to stop doing the late payers a favour and have raised the rates to 17.75%.
There are some people who make it a bit tough because they, in actual fact, have been able to withhold their rates to some extent and pay 10% on them, and that didn't change for quite a number of years. And both we and the government have become aware that some people have been exploiting this situation, and so there's been a move now to ensure that it runs at the same rate as applies generally on other loans or other money that are unpaid.
As well as continuing its capital works and community programs in the coming year, the Lake Council also intends to donate 2 scholarships to chemistry students at Newcastle University to monitor the pollution in the lake.
We're looking at 2 scholarships, part-time scholarships, for some of our own young people to be undertaken through our own university on Lake Macquarie, and to give us an up-to-date monitoring of the situation there.
It's the first time that the Society has met outside a capital city in its 16-year history, and according to one of the organisers, Professor Robert Clancy, it shows that Newcastle is being taken seriously as a centre for medical research.
The implications are that firstly, Newcastle is recognised as a major site for serious research in immunology. Secondly, it brings to Newcastle a wide-ranging international and national experts that can bring to us what's happening around the world in diseases related to cancer, AIDS, autoimmune diseases, allergies, and I think that it's also brought 2 clinical meetings which we've had earlier this week in allergy and clinical immunology. So it really has brought together a very exciting group of people who are seeing Newcastle in many cases for the first time.
A wide range of issues will come under the spotlight during the conference, including cancer, AIDS, autoimmune diseases and allergies. About 33 companies have sponsored the meeting, and many of these have trade displays at the David Madison Clinical Sciences building, where most of the conference sessions are being held. One of the most prominent speakers today was Stanford University's pathology professor Irving Wiseman. One issue Professor Wiseman spoke on was the use of mice in AIDS research.
So what we have to do is be able to study this in mice, understand the normal functions, then hopefully create an AIDS variant that will infect mice and do the same thing. So we can then try to work out how to stop the disease once it's in its process, how to replace the immune cells once you're infected. I think there are great hopes now already that within the next 5 to 10 years there will be vaccines against each of the new AIDS viruses that come up. But that won't halt the disease once it's started. To do that, you're going to have to intervene in ways that we've been studying and ways that other people have been studying.
This bushland gully at Merewether Heights became the centre of a large-scale police hunt this afternoon after the woman was found seriously injured on the side of Scenic Drive by a passing motorist. The Newcastle Rescue helicopter was called in and traffic on City Road was stopped while the helicopter landed to pick up the police rescue squad officers for an aerial search. Scores of police cars patrolled the area, questioning passers-by and looking for clues. The drama began in this Dawson Street house in Cooks Hill at about 8 a.m. A young man believed to be in his late teens or early 20s forced his way into the house and assaulted a 50-year-old woman who lives there alone. Police say the man then locked the woman in the boot of a car and drove to the gully at Merewether Heights. He then allegedly stabbed the woman 3 times, twice in the back and once under the chin. Police say the man locked the woman in the boot and set the car on fire. The woman saved herself by pushing out the back seats and crawling into the passenger compartment. The car, a grey 1972 Renault sedan, was later found badly damaged by fire. Police have issued this description of the man. He is in his late teens or early 20s, with brown hair, bushy eyebrows, and wearing a brown checkered shirt and blue jeans. The man was wearing a silver chain around his neck and on his right shoulder had a tattoo of a face wearing a top hat and smoking a cigarette. The woman, meanwhile, is in a stable condition in Royal Newcastle Hospital, while police continue their search.
Just before 8:30 last night, Newcastle detectives raided a flat in Brook Street, Bar Beach. Inside, they found asleep a man wanted for questioning following the assault and attempted murder of a 56-year-old woman earlier in the day. After questioning the man for a short time, detectives took him to Newcastle Police Station, where just before midnight he was charged with a number of offences, including assault and attempted murder. He's been remanded to appear in Newcastle Court this morning. The man charged is a shift worker and was known to police. The raid on the Bar Beach flat followed the discovery of a woman near City Road, Merewether Heights, at around lunchtime yesterday. She was suffering from stab wounds and burns. The woman alleged a man had forced entry into her Cooks Hill home and assaulted her. He then locked her in the boot of a Renault sedan and drove to bushland off City Road. There, he allegedly stabbed the woman 3 times before setting the car alight. The woman freed herself by pushing out the car's back seat and escaping through the passenger compartment. The man then pushed her back into the burning car, but she again managed to free herself. She is now in Royal Newcastle Hospital, where she's in a stable condition.
Richard Face chaired today's meeting, the last of the year, involving the Glenrock State Recreation Area Advisory Committee, the Scout Association and the Glenrock Land Transfer Committee. Mr Face says land belonging to BHP behind the Scout Camp, Commonwealth land at Flaky Creek and Hunter District Waterboard land near the Gun Club is likely to be added to the recreation area in the new year. He says the future of the gravel quarry is also under consideration. The Advisory and Land Transfer Committees have been up and running for the last 6 months, and Richard Face says in that time they've achieved a great deal.
There's been a lot achieved in the sense that we've been able to deliberate with a lot of various organisations in finding out what their wants and needs. and to impress upon them what our priorities are and what we will be expressing to the Minister. And also, I believe, generally the education process of the public coming to know that we exist and that we will tolerate certain things, and things like recreational vehicles being indiscriminately using it here, and moreover problems of dumping of rubbish, not so much the householder now but the commercial operator, and that we just won't tolerate it in the long term.
Campaigns to conserve water have usually been launched during periods of drought. This TV commercial aimed at children hit the mark in 1979 when reservoir levels in the Hunter Valley were low.
And?
There'd be hot, thirsty dogs and dry, dusty frogs.
It wouldn't be cool in a dry swimming pool.
We sure are glad we've got water, Dad.
Good.
We'll take it easy this summer.
Take it.
But this summer, the Water Board reports that the 3 major storage dams are 3/4 full. So why then is this $100,000 campaign still necessary?
If it's effective, prolong the time before we need our next major capital investment.
How does that deferment actually assist you?
We don't have to borrow as much money right now. We will be managing the system on the same capital debt. It should also assist us because we won't have to increase our charges as much to pay for the cost of borrowing money to build new capital works.
The biggest capital works program on the horizon is the construction of Tilligrid Dam, with the first stage costing $40 million. This massive capital cost will be financed by the ratepayer. So between now and February, we'll meet Wally and Bazza with a message about the right and the wrong way to use water.
One, Baz. Should have done that this morning, Wally.
Well, we all fancy a cool drink on a hot day, Baz.
Garden's different, Wally. I learned that in a drought. Sun hot, ground hot. Water just evaporates. Never gets to the roots, see? And after all like you, Wally, there'd be no water left.
Are you sure, Baz?
Wally, your garden, my garden.
Don't be a Wally with water.
The accident blocked Helen Street and Watkins Road for several hours. Shortly before 6 o'clock, the orange Cortina, which was travelling north along Watkins Road, collided with the silver Lancer at the intersection of the two streets. 2 elderly people in the Lancer were trapped for a short time. Both were taken to Royal Newcastle Hospital. The female driver had minor injuries. The male passenger suffered serious internal injuries. The male driver of the Cortina escaped unhurt. He was interviewed by police for several hours and was later charged with drink driving.
That is
the overnight visit by 2 members of the Chinese People's Association for Peace and Disarmament is part of China's increasing move to open up to Western ideas. A small group of local peace activists were on hand at the Newcastle Workers' Club to hear them talk about the peace movement in China and their desire to make relations with the peace movement out here. It's part of a 2-week visit to Australia, in which time they'll talk to peace activists and politicians. After that, they fly out to New Zealand for 1 week, and then it's back to China. The Peace and Disarmament Association has only been going in China for 18 months, and part of the reason for the visit here is to exchange ideas. According to Xu Wan Chu, the Chinese are committed to avoiding another world war, and their peace movement is basically similar to ours.
I think the wishes, the desire for world peace is the same with the people of China and also the people in this country.
The mood at Today's opening of the $8 million first stage of the Salamander Bay Commercial Centre was one of jubilation. The new owners of the centre's Centennial Projects, which bought the site from the Port Stephens Shire Council, have endured strong opposition over the past 3 years from residents.
Clearly there were some people in the community that just didn't want it to go ahead. They have their own motives, of course. We've just loosely termed them vested interest groups.
The centre, which has the biggest shoe store in Australia, as well as 32 specialty shops and professional suites, was officially opened by Shire President Roy Taylor. Councillor Taylor is confident the development's critics will soon eat their words. And he says that although the council no longer owns the commercial centre, the council and the ratepayers of Port Stephens will benefit from its success.
Around here in this particular centre we have commercial land remaining which belongs to council, so obviously the fact that once this building is up and running it's certainly got to appreciate our own land around here. So in effect we've got another asset or a profit in as much as the land that was valued at say X is now worth X plus. That's basically what it is.
This is just stage one of the commercial centre project. The developers say that within the next 2 to 7 years, they'll be ready to build stage 2, which will be twice as big as this centre. Another shopping centre complex has received the green light, this time from Lake Macquarie City Council. After more than 5 years of planning and battles in the Land and Environment Court, the Glendale Shopping Centre had its development application approved last night. The centre near the crossroads at Glendale will incorporate a cinema, a bowling alley and tavern, as well as a number of specialty shops, a supermarket and a department store. One of the most ardent opponents to the centre, Cardiff Chamber of Commerce, says it's disappointed by the council's decision, but it says it intends to keep up the fight.
Well, it's difficult to say just exactly what sort of results can be achieved, but certainly whatever avenues we can take to make our feelings be known, any formal avenues that are open to us will certainly be taken.
The addition brings the total area of the Goulburn River National Park to almost 68,000 hectares and means the park now extends from Sandy Hollow in the east to Ulan in the west. The extra land, formerly Crown land and timber reserves, has also created the largest continuous area of National Park in New South Wales, stretching from the Wombian Caves near Goulburn to north of Mudgee. The Goulburn River National Park was established in 1983 and follows the course of the Goulburn River. It's widely believed Aborigines used the river as a major east-west route between the coast and the western regions of the state. Access to the park is gained from the Merrywater Bylong Road, while access to the new addition is along the Cassilis to Ulan Road.